Formula One and the United States of America have always had a roller coaster relationship. There have been some incredible highs, such as 2022's Miami Grand Prix race being the most watched race ever. Then there was the abyssal low of the Caesars Palace Grand Prix. The Drive to Survive era has ignited a fire in the hearts of Americans. But is this F1 frenzy the real deal? Or like Drive to Survive, is it all hype and no substance? Let's find out. At the start of the 2023 season, Formula One was riding a wave of popularity unlike anything it had previously seen. By the modern metric of social media reach, the sport had reached 173% more people in 2022 than it had in 2021. The raw data is even more impressive, with impressions up by 26.1 billion in the first 5 months of 2022. The 2021 Drivers' Championship had been absolutely wild, and it coincided perfectly with Drive to Survive bringing a new audience to the sport. It was this perfect storm of new viewers and the most exciting championship battle since 2016. People were watching for the first time and thinking, holy F, this is wild. Lewis and Max's battle created a partisan crowd which drove social media discussions, which exposed new people to the sport in a way that money could never buy. That hype continued into 2022, and for a while, it looked like Charles Leclerc would replace Lewis in the battle with Max. Unfortunately, Ferrari didn't have the legs to hold pace with Verstappen, and by the summer break, the championship was all but over. The season as a whole never had the same tension as 2021. Nonetheless, expectations were high for 2023. Formula One CEO Stefano Domenicali was downright giddy about the sport's flourishing American fanbase. There was even a scene in Drive to Survive featuring him singing the Star-Spangled Banner in his Italian accent. He was probably thinking about it being a $ spangled banner though, because the F1 market is a treasure trove in his eyes, just waiting to be plundered. I'm pretty convinced we're just scratching the surface of this market. We're just looking into the future, Domenicali says, after having soaked up the crowd for Miami's new race. I'm very excited. Miami has been a trial run for Las Vegas, an American party city playing host to a luxurious sport with a playboy reputation, tempted all the glitz and glamour the US had to offer to descend on a Miami parking lot for a weekend. Just imagine what the most glamorous street in the world's greatest party city could do. The rich and famous will flock to Las Vegas in mid-November for a party like no other, and for Formula One's popularity in the States, that will be huge. The sport has its first American driver since 2015, with 22-year-old Logan Sargent now racing for the Williams team. For the first time in generations, there is an American driver and a US-owned team, Haas F1, simultaneously on the track. This weekend's race in Austin at the Circuit of the Americas broke the attendance record for an F1 race last year, with 440,000 fans attending. Logan Sargent made one of the biggest claims before the season began. It seems almost as big as NASCAR and IndyCar, if not bigger. While the popularity of IndyCar racing declined sharply when the series split into rival kart and IRL factions in the 90s, NASCAR has long been a huge draw for American fans, though its popularity has waned slightly in recent years. Obviously, there's a lot of die-hard IndyCar and NASCAR fans who don't always like it, said Sargent. But I think with the way the sport is going in America, it will, if it's not already, it will be the biggest here shortly. We've seen this optimism for growth in the US in the past though. America has featured in the Formula One calendar since the very first season of Formula One in 1950. It was just the Indy 500 and teams had to create a totally different car for it, but in 1959, the first proper Formula One race took place at the Sebring Raceway. Since then though, the popularity of F1 in the US has ebbed and flowed. Part of the problem has been the often farcical nature of some of the races, which has discouraged the native audiences. The 2005 US GP at Indianapolis was described by Alan Henry as the most catastrophic public relations disaster in the 56-year history of the official World Championship. In practice, accidents caused by Michelin tire failures on Indianapolis's banked Turn 13 afflicted both Toyota's Ralf Schumacher, who had to withdraw from the race, and his replacement Ricardo Zonta. A solution couldn't be found, resulting in the Michelin tire teams withdrawing from the race, leaving just the Bridgestone Ferrari, Jordan and Minardi teams to make up a 6-car grid. Then there was the Caesars Palace Grand Prix, which serves as a reminder that no matter how sick you are of street races, they could always be worse. If anything, it was just a tribute to how big US car parks really can be. A race run up and down the bays of the Caesars Palace Casino lot never was going to get the heart pumping, at least not for the right reasons. Just look at the track map. Who ever thought this would be good? These flops were bad, but perhaps what is happening in the sport at the moment is even worse. While the more seasoned Formula 1 viewers are used to periods of dominance from Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel and Michael Schumacher, the newer fans that were part of that boom in 2021 and 2022 expect more. The effects of Red Bull's dominance in the back end of 2022 and the early stages of 2023 has already had an effect. Last year's Miami race, broadcast on ABC, drew a record-breaking 2.6 million viewers, making it the largest live F1 audience in US history. This year, however, saw a significant drop, with ABC losing a staggering 25% of its audience from the previous season. Despite decline, some areas showed increased interest in F1, particularly in rural regions. States like North Carolina, known for NASCAR, and Oklahoma saw an uptick in F1 viewership. I see all the comments on our videos about how things are stale and boring, and there isn't any point in watching the races, and I get it. It's like watching a movie you already know the end of, right? When Max is basically guaranteed to win the race, it takes the edge of expectation out of the experience. That sentiment is also reflected in the social media figures. If we compare the period from January to May in 2023 to 2022, Formula 1 social impressions have dropped by 39.57 billion, or by 279%. If social media figures were making F1 bosses excited last year, then this year's figures should have horrified them. Surely this can't just be the impact of Red Bull's dominance though. There must be more at play. Well, there's no Oscar Piastri Alpine fallout, no fight about porpoising, no shouting matches between Toto Wolff and Christian Horner, no Red Bull financial overspend to reignite the 2021 season argument. These were all things that drove engagement in 2022, but this season has been far more mundane. Even this year's silly season was a complete non-event. In Formula 1 terms, this season has been very, very ordinary, but if you started watching the sport in the last 3 years, it has actually been extraordinarily boring. The problems don't stop on track though. The Andretti brand is almost god tier in US motorsport. Driving success with Mario, including an F1 and IndyCar title, became ownership success with titles in IndyCar, Kart, Indy Lights, and Formula E. 21 drivers will race under the Andretti banner this year. They're everywhere. But they're definitely not in Formula 1. Not yet, anyway. Whether the sport's inner circles have a personal problem with Andretti or just with an 11th team is up for debate. But either way, it doesn't reflect well on the sport from an American point of view. Then there is the Las Vegas Grand Prix. For those who can afford a ticket or a hotel room with a view of the track, I'm sure it will be the experience of a lifetime. For the 99.9% of people who can't though, it is a slap in the face. If I was a new fan on the west coast of the US, seeing ticket prices of $2,000 minimum for a grandstand seat would definitely make me feel like it wasn't a sport that wanted me. And that grandstand is located directly before a corner as well, which means you'll have roughly 30 seconds of action before the cars disappear from view. It's not just Vegas either. A 3-day ticket for the Miami race next year will cost you $1,600. Despite the evidence of viewership and social media impressions, there is optimism though. In the face of the pretty big issues I've just spoken of, Formula 1 still feels like there is a market in the US to be exploited. In the eyes of Formula 1 ownership, we're all just wallets to be emptied, aren't we? While the social media figures are bad and viewership is down, those figures just cover the average Joe like you and me. Zach Brown said before this weekend's Grand Prix, "The races are all sold out. Corporate hospitality is off the charts." The awareness for Formula 1 is fantastic, but its TV ratings in North America relative to other major forms of sport are still very low. There's a lot of room for viewership growth in America. Brown added, "Las Vegas is the hottest sporting ticket, not just in North America, but in the world." Las Vegas is likely to re-inject the US with enthusiasm for the sport. You aren't going to be able to go on social media without seeing it mentioned on your favorite celebrities' feeds, because they'll all be there. Remember, the race is going to be on a Saturday night as well. It's going to be the biggest party Formula 1 has ever seen. Brad Pitt's untitled F1 movie isn't far away either, which will expose a horde of new viewers to the sport. So, is F1 all hype in the US? Or is it actually succeeding like the sport's owners like to say? For now, the data says the exploding popularity may be a flash in the pan. But that explosion will leave behind a host of fans. Formula 1 isn't failing in the US at all. It just obliterated its own expectations for a year or two, that's all. But that's just what I think. I'd love to hear what you think, especially if you're based in the US. Is the sport growing in popularity? Have you seen your friends lose interest this season? Let me know in the comments down below, and until next time, drive safe and bye for now.